Alright, so this is all of the equipment that I took with me on my last through hike of the PCT. I did it 2014, and I'm actually going to do it again this coming summer in 2015. There were some fires that closed a couple of sections, so a lot of us missed some sizable chunks. Not by choice, but just that's kind of how the trail goes. But I thought I'd do a quick video of all of the equipment that I finished with. So this is a post-hike gear overview because I started with more stuff, and as I hiked I realized what I actually needed to bring with me, what was unnecessary, what was more comfort than I really needed, and I did end up sending quite a few things home, including taking things off of the backpack itself, cutting pieces off, removing the lid, stuff like that. So, this is, like I said, this is a post-hike review of the gear that I finished with. All of this gear here is stuff that I finished with, or in the case of the bear can over there, something that I used on a portion that I didn't have a choice. We all have to carry the bear cans at one point. Just suck it up. So let's start with some of the fun stuff. This was my backpack. This is the Deuter ACT 050 plus 15. I was the only person on trail that I saw with this backpack. I saw a lot of other ULAs, a lot of Gregory's, a lot of Hyperlight Mountain Gear, a lot of Mountain Laurel design, Six Moon design, a lot of those. And I saw other Deuters, but no one had this pack, and I'm not really sure why, because this is an excellent pack, especially for the lightweight backpacking. It's cheap. It's about $185 from REI, or at least it was when I bought it. I was able to get it in a brick and mortar store, so thankfully I was able to try it on before I bought it. And it fit really well, has nice wide hip belts, as you can see. Unfortunately, kind of lacking in outside storage, an external storage. That's the only side pocket, and side pockets are great, so it would be nice if it had bigger ones. But I'm not going to get into too many critiques of the gear. I just want to show you guys what I finished with. So these are the things that worked. I didn't hang on to anything if it didn't work. I did my best to replace it. So these are all things that I was at least able to put up with until the end of the trail, and were durable enough and functional enough that they made it. So like I said, Deuter ACT 050 plus 15. With all the stuff, I took the lid off, I cut a couple of side straps off, and it ended up being sub 3 pounds. So that's not bad for a non-ultralight pack. And it was huge. The inside storage is giant. Okay, moving on. Moving over here, we've got all of my electronics. We've got the Tikka Xp 2 with the core rechargeable battery. That was really important. I love this headlamp. It's fantastic, bright enough to hike with no problem. And with the rechargeable battery, I didn't have to buy batteries in town. It was rechargeable with this cord right here, which is just, I believe it's micro or mini USB. I don't remember exactly what that's called. But I was able to use the same little wall plug-in as my iPhone, which I'm using right now to record this. But yeah, so that was fantastic, super bright. I used an Apple Ipod Shuffle. I believe this is the 6th generation. It's a really nice little touch screen. Would last about 3 days on one charge, and that's using it a lot. That's using it all day hiking, listening to it while I was in camp, listening to it while I was eating lunch. Great. Here's the cord for my iPhone. I used an iPhone 4S, which I'm using right now to record. And this is a Jackery Bar external battery. I picked this up, or was given this, in Ashland. I didn't have it before then. I wish I did. It's a little heavy. You can look it up. Like I said, it's called the Jackery Bar. It's a little heavy, but man, I went 9 days on a stretch. I was trying to let somebody catch up with me, so I was kind of stalling. And I went 9 days keeping the iPhone, this, and this all charged to 100% the entire time. And I was taking video, I was doing pictures, I was using all of this stuff, and I was doing some night hiking. It was getting later in season, so I was having to use this quite a bit. No problem. And like I said, I was using this every day. So those were my electronics. I didn't carry too much other stuff. I didn't use a solar charger. A lot of people did, but I did not. Okay, moving on to the clothing. Let's start off with the clothing bag. Used a Therm-A-Rest fleece lined stuff sack. It was fantastic, worked as a pillow, very light, reasonably water resistant, so if on the off chance any water did get on there, it didn't really soak through all that easily to the clothing. Great. These are my town clothes. Now I didn't start with these, I didn't start with town clothes, but I realized pretty quickly that it's important to have them. It's one of those comfort items it's a comfort item, but man, you're hurting if you're in town and you don't have any fresh clothes to change into while your dirty hiking clothes are in the wash. So in Tehachapi, I grabbed a pair of really light running shorts. They weigh almost nothing. Very comfortable. Dry fast, so if I needed to hike in them, I could. And then in Lone Pine, I went ahead and got a nice cotton t-shirt. Cotton's really heavy, but it was really nice. And if I ever wanted to, because sometimes the fleece would be a little uncomfortable, and I had clothes in here, so sometimes it would get kind of stinky. I could actually wrap clothes and anything else soft in this and use this as a pillow, and that felt really nice on my face at night. So both of these were great as town clothes. I don't regret them. I'll probably be bringing them again on this next one. Moving over, I got my sleeping clothes, and these are fantastic. This is the Thermosilk crew top and pants. As you can see, this is both the top and the pants. And they crunch down to nothing. They weigh almost nothing, and they're very warm. They're very warm. They look like they're super delicate, but they're not, man. Those things are tough. I put those through washing machines. I didn't take any special care of them. Nothing. Just treated them like I did anything else, and they didn't tear, they didn't fray, they didn't rip, nothing. They were fantastic. Here are the underwear that I used. I just used the kind of Target brand, I think that's Champion Gear. I think that's what the CG means. But I just used a pair of these, and I changed them out a couple of times on trail whenever I had a chance. But they were fine. They never ripped, they never wore out. They were comfortable. I only brought one pair. I know that's kind of gross, but everything you own smells like ass, so just suck it up and accept it. It's going to smell bad. So I just carried one pair. Alright, and the pants were Columbia Silver Ridge zip-off pants. I generally zipped off the legs, kept them in the front compartment of my backpack, so in case it got really buggy, I was able to toss those on really fast over my shoes, just kind of pull them on. I didn't ever... Or if it got really, really cold, like I got into camp, it was cold, I was starting to cool off, I was covered in sweat, so it got cold pretty quick, I could throw those on real fast. But I generally hiked in the shorts. I didn't really hike with the long pants. I didn't like the feel of that. And it's kind of unnecessary. You don't really need them. Anyway, okay, moving on, we got the Shin Sleeves. I came down with shin splints just before Lone Pine, so my parents were coming to visit me. They met me down there in Lone Pine. I'm from California, so it wasn't much of a drive. Came down to visit, and they knew about my problems, so my father brought me a pair of these, and they're kind of preventative. They don't really... It's hard to tell whether or not they do anything, but what I can say is I didn't have any other shin problems once I started wearing these, so I just kind of kept wearing them, hoping that they, in fact, were doing something positive, and I didn't have any shin problems after I started using them. So Zensa Shin Sleeves, as far as I can tell, they worked. I don't know, but nothing bad happened to my shins after I started wearing them. So I'm just going to keep wearing them until something bad does happen. All right, moving up. I got the Columbia Silver Ridge shirt, same model as the pants. This was fantastic. I got the white one, so it was nice and cool in the desert. Got the roll-up sleeves with a little tab on it. Great. Solid. This is the one. I wore this from border to border. This is my border to border shirt. And it held up really, really well. I lost a button at one point, but other than that, it's solid as a rock. Moving on, we've got my socks. These are Darn Tough Hike Trek socks, not the running ones. I've tried the running ones. Man, I went through socks like nobody's business. I blew holes in socks more frequently than any other hiker I met on the entire trail. They were... I destroyed socks. Even Darn Toughs. I made it, although I didn't make it through an entire state on, I always carried two pairs. I carried two pairs of socks. One I would hang on my backpack to dry during the day, and one I would wear. And then I would change them out depending on how hot it was or how wet the socks were, whatever. I could change them out and let them dry on the pack. And I went through two pairs, through Oregon. I only needed to carry two pairs through Oregon, but both pairs did have holes in them by the time I hit Cascade Locks. So I do. You know, everybody else told me, "Oh yeah, you get the Hike Trek ones. You'll have those for 800 miles before they start getting holes in them." No, I went through them in about 400 miles, and they had like quarter-sized holes in them. So I went through them pretty fast, but they did hold up pretty well. I used Balegas in the beginning in the desert. Those were great, although they did only last about 200 miles. They're thin running socks. Really, the only ones I would recommend, the Balegas were good, and the Darn Toughs. Any other sock brand I tried was uncomfortable or it fell apart too quickly for me to recommend. All right, this is the Go Light Selkirk jacket. It is probably one of my least favorite pieces of gear, but I guess it did what it was supposed to, sort of. It's down, it's 850 fill down. I got it on sale, which is why I got it, and it is very light. I think you can look up the weight, but obviously you can't buy it from Go Light anymore since Go Light doesn't exist. But like I said, it's the Go Light Selkirk, and it's super light. It's not very, it's not very warm. All I can say for it is that it didn't let me die. But other than that, I was very uncomfortable and cold in it frequently. It did not provide a lot of warmth, but it is very light, so I guess you just kind of accept that that hit. Okay, moving on. Marmot Precip jacket worked really well, but I would say that the DWR finish on it will wear out at least by Cascade locks. So when you get to Cascade locks, you're going to want to either get a fresh jacket or find some way to re-up the DWR, because once I got into Washington and started getting rained on regularly, this thing was no good. It was bad. It just soaked right through. It didn't repel water at all. But it was good until then. All right, moving on. I didn't use rain pants. I used this. It's a ULA rain skirt. It's fantastic. It weighs very little. I could shove it in the outside front pocket of my backpack, so I didn't have to go digging around when it started raining. I wouldn't ever go back to rain pants. Definitely get the ULA rain skirt. It is fantastic. Super tough. Completely waterproof, but still lets you breathe. Very long. It came down to about mid-shin for me, and I'm 6 foot tall. So great. It's also fantastic for hiker wash. When you get up into Washington, you get up into the North Cascades, even if it's not raining, you're kind of walking in a cloud all the time. So all of the plants are wet. And they're all hitting your legs, they're hitting your arms, they're hitting everything. And so even if it's not raining, your pants and everything will end up completely soaked. This was fantastic for that because I could toss it on. I didn't overheat. I didn't have to put a rain jacket on. And I could just walk down the trail and all the plants would rub up against the sil nylon and I wouldn't get wet at all. It was great. It was really, really nice. For most of Washington I was wearing that almost all the time. So highly recommend that. Okay. Warm hat was the Mountain Hardwear. I think it's the Microdome, I believe it's called. Just kind of a plain fleece hat, really light, pretty warm, good hat. This is the REI, I think Cool Max liner gloves. I got them, they were on discount. I grabbed them for really cheap. And these are just some cheap, I think they're Target brand from a few years back. Mitten type things. They've got this part that flips over the fingers, which is great, and one bit that flips over the thumb, so you can have your thumb and your fingertips all exposed or completely covered. Great. I would highly recommend finding gloves with that capability. This all together were almost completely windproof. If I wore the liners with these, they weighed very little, and it was quite warm. It was good and great to sleep in if need be. Moving on, this is my kind of sun stuff. I used a baseball hat. This one I got in Thru-hiking because the one I was using was a trucker hat that I got from another hiker and it was too small, but I didn't really have a good replacement for it for most of the trail, so I wore the trucker hat from the Softleys in Agua Dulce all the way to Thru-hiking, and then I got this one to replace it. And I didn't wear a full brimmed hat like a Tilly hat. I just used a bandana underneath that, and it was great. It was really good in the Sierras too. When I had my head net on, over that, with the bandana draped over my ears, it kept the mosquitoes from being able to get at my ears or even get close to them, so I didn't have to hear that as they get, near your ear. It was great. Highly recommended. And it kept them off the back of your neck too. My sunglasses, I actually found these. They're $150 sunglasses. They're native. I found them on a bar room floor a few months before I left for the trip. I asked the bartender if anybody had lost glasses. He said no. No one had reported it, so I said, oh, well, hey, cool, free sunglasses. So, $150 native sunglasses. They're polarized. They're really, really nice. And they're solid. I did lose them once on the trail, and they made it back to me. A day hiker found them, gave them to a hiker behind me. The hiker caught up with me and gave them to me. So, really lucky. Solid glasses. I'm going to carry them again. And then this is just a little kind of microfiber bag that I had with another pair of sunglasses that I use for cleaning these, because wiping those sort of glasses on synthetic hiking clothes doesn't work. It just sort of smudges all the stuff on. You have to have something like this or something like cotton to really wipe the gunk off of there. All right, moving on. I carried my maps and permits in just a big Ziploc bag. I also carried a pen and a Sharpie and a little waterproof Write in the Rain notepad. Worked great, was able to write down. I kept, this is kind of how I did resupplies. I just wrote down the exact mileage points of the various spots, and then how many miles in between. I did a hybrid resupply strategy. So I'd get into a town. If I had B, that meant I was going to buy there. If I had M, that meant I was going to mail something. And I could, when I got there, I just said 67 miles, what's my current pace? And I'd buy food based on that for the next stretch. Worked out really well. Moving on. This was a piece of gear that was really nice to have sometimes. When I wanted it, it was fantastic, but I didn't need it most of the time. It was great in the desert for keeping sun off. In Oregon, it was okay for rain, but then you get into Washington, like I said, everything's wet all the time and you're in a cloud, so it doesn't really help all that much even when you are being rained on. You're just gonna be soaked through, so it doesn't really do much. It was great in the snow when I got up to the near the Canadian border and I started getting snowed on a bit. It was really good for that. It's kind of a snow shield. So that was nice. But Go Light Chrome Dome Umbrella, I know Go Light's gone, but you can buy an equivalent from, I'm not sure the name of the brand, but you can buy an equivalent. Just look it up. This is my trekking poles. They are the Black Diamond Trail Ergo Cork. Solid poles. The wrist straps are starting to fray a little bit. Other than that, rock solid. Nothing wrong with them. Did have to replace the tips at one point, but you're going to have to do that with any poles. Everything else, golden. Really good. Put duct tape around there just in case. If you need that for anything, it's good to have it right there. Moving on. This is my toiletry kit. There is one thing not pictured here because I threw it away when I got to Canada, and it's my trowel. It was just one of those cheapo orange trowels, like orange camp trowels. Those weigh only about an ounce, so go ahead and get one of those. They're indestructible as long as you're relatively careful. And I didn't use toilet paper after a certain point. I didn't use toilet paper, started just using these wet ones. I used one for each time I needed to go to the bathroom, and then hand sanitizer afterwards. And it worked great, super light, and it was and they're kind of multi-purpose too. You can, if you have extras, you can sort of use them to give yourself a quick little important part bath. You know, your face, armpits, crotch, and butt. So good. Toiletries, toothbrush, travel size toothpaste. These two things I used right here, the nail file and the nail clippers, little ones. They were good. A lot of other hikers asked if they could use them. It was nice to have. I'm probably not going to bring them next time, but nice to have. Floss, great for sewing, repairs, and flossing. Chapstick, really important especially in the high Sierras. You know, when you start getting dehydrated, but you don't feel like you're getting dehydrated, definitely need to keep that chapstick on and keep yourself hydrated. Ibuprofen, easily accessible. I kept a bag in my backpack and a bag in my toiletry kit that was on the outside. Very good. Excuse me. Pack towel. Good. Great for when you're in town and you're getting a shower. And very rarely will you be provided with a towel, so it's kind of important that you have something like that. At least something like that. Dr. Bronner's, again, great when you're in town and you find one of those cord-operated showers and there's no soap around. So very important to have at least some soap for comfort reasons. Good, yeah, so that's all good there. Excuse me. These things I had hanging on my backpack, hanging on my shoulder strap. Little compass and thermometer, that was really important. The thermometer came in handy in the North Cascades when it started getting below freezing during the middle of the day. And I had to put my water filter in my jacket next to my core to keep it from freezing. So kind of important to have a thermometer when you get up into the colder temperatures. Little knife here. I almost never used this, but I'll get into more about this later. Yeah, and then this one I use more often. This Leatherman Juice S2 has a full-size knife. It was great for cutting cheese, but really too much, kind of too heavy for what I need. Next time I'll just be using this. A little emergency whistle, and a watch that I had on a string that I just kind of attached to my sternum strap. Really important to be able to just keep an eye on the time. This also was on there. Now the thing's broken, so I can't hang it anymore. Bug net, Sea to Summit head net, you know what this is for. You need one. You absolutely need one. This was sort of my emergency kit stuff. Let's see if I can. Sorry, I should have opened this up before I started the video. But this was my little bag of just-in-case items. So I had a battery backup for my headlamp, a little bit of paracord, extra lighter, a flint and steel, and a first aid kit. You can find. I mean, just think about what is likely to actually happen on trail, and then build your first aid kit around that. Don't throw everything in there, and don't bring anything that you don't know how to use. Don't bring like a suture kit if you don't know how to do sutures. Just don't. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of weight. Just don't do it. All right, moving on. Let's see what's next. Okay, water. This was what I finished with. I had more bottles in the desert, obviously, but this is what I finished with. I carried a Camelback 2 liter. I found I could only keep 1 liter in it without it starting to leak. It was strange. I can only keep 1 liter in it, so really that was a 1 liter bladder, kind of a waste of weight. I also had this little connector put in, and I'll explain why in a second. Water bottle. This was my kind of dirty water. This was fantastic. You want a hard-sided one if you're using the Sawyer Squeeze, which most of you will be. It makes it easy to collect the water, and the 1.5 liter is a good size if you're about to camp and you don't want to spend a lot of time filtering before you get to camp. You just want to grab water from a source and then get away from the water, like in the high Sierras with mosquitoes. So 1.5 liter smart water bottle, and I used one of these for about, almost 1,000 miles, and it didn't break. It was constantly squeezing it, bending it, and it never broke. It never ruptured, nothing. Smaller smart water bottle, just for clean water, with the sport top. This will replace the little sport top will replace your need for the syringe, the back flushing thing, because the top of that fits on the little nub in there, and you can just squeeze water through. So you don't need a syringe, just get that. And then a Gatorade bottle. I liked having the wide mouth. This, part of an Aquafina bottle that I cut off. This was my water scoop. I use this more in the desert than anywhere else, but it was great for low water sources where this couldn't really get to it. I was using water bags in the desert before I switched to that, and this was fantastic. So water scoop really comes in handy. You'll want one of these in the desert with those really, really low trickling water sources. Make yourself a cup. Sawyer Squeeze. Fantastic. You just have to keep it from freezing, back flush it every time you get in town. Now, I had this little extra bit I bought that screws on, and what this allowed me to do was to directly filter into my water bag by unhooking that and snapping that directly on. Or what I also ended up doing was, just for ease, I'd filter into this bottle, and then I'd screw this on top of that, on top of the smart water. I'd take this off and screw it on top of the smart water bottle, and then I would be able to put exactly 1 liter into here. So I knew that it wasn't going to start leaking on me. So I started doing that, and that worked pretty well. And it went in pretty fast. I didn't have to squeeze it into the Camelback or anything. All right, food. I used an Ursack for most of the trail, and I used an Ursack for most of the trail, and a BV500 Bear Vault. BV500 Bear Vault for the parts in Yosemite and the parts where it was required. Inside the Ursack, I carried my food, obviously, and I had my long REI spoon, plastic spoon, indestructible. It's $1. Get it. It's as light, if not lighter than any titanium spoon, and you don't need the titanium. Just get this. It's super cheap, super light, awesome. Carried a couple of bottles, one with olive oil, one with hot sauce. These bottles are kind of funky. I'm switching to just screw tops without the little squirter, because as you can see, it got really dirty and leaked a little bit. So get ones with just a screw top on. I used I made a homemade pot cozy out of a Reflectex sun shield for a car. It's really easy. I just went on Eric the Black thing, followed his design, and it worked perfectly. I have an Msr Titan titanium kettle. If I can get it out, I'll just leave that in there. It was great, perfect size for a hiker if you actually want to cook in it. I mostly did freezer bag cooking, but if on the rare occasion that I did actually put food in here, it was enough room for it, and it was great. Inside I had a bandana that I used to kind of dampen the noise of things clanging around in there, and in the bandana I had an Msr Pocket Rocket, I had another sparker, and I had a lighter. This one I got at Kickoff, and I actually kept it nice, yeah. And that was just to light the stove. You definitely want to have some kind of sparker in case your lighter goes out or gets wet. There were a few times when people talked to me about that, how they weren't able to have hot meals or cook their food at all because their lighter was out of fuel or had gotten wet. And with this, you're always going to be able to light this. Always. Just throw a spark into it while the gas is on. You'll have flame. Okay, moving on. Some people were worried. I was concerned about fuel availability. Don't be concerned. You can get them almost anywhere. The trail towns and the resorts in Oregon, everywhere you're going to pass through knows you need this, and they want to make money off of you, so they stock these. Don't worry. You're going to be able to find partially used one in hiker boxes. You will always be able to get fuel, okay? And these last forever. I was only boiling about 1.5 to 2 cups of water a day, if even that, and if I could get away with it, I wouldn't. But if I was doing that, I never ran out. I mean, I was making it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. I made it from the border to the Softleys on like half a canister. So that gives you an idea of how far you can get with one of these little bad boys if you're being conservative with your fuel usage. All right, shelter. I've got the Fly Creek UL1. There's the poles and a homemade Tyvek ground sheet. Not much to say about that. And coming around here, that is my sleep system. I've got the Marmot Helium 15. It's a good bag. It's pretty lightweight. It's about 2 pounds. Pretty lightweight. Very comfortable. Make sure you wash it. It will fluff back up after you wash it. But you definitely need to wash it at least once on the trip. I kept it in a small Event Sea to Summit compression sack. It was good. The bag never got wet. It was great. And a 3/4 length Therm-A-Rest Zee Light Pad. This one's kind of worn out. This is the one I had from Ashland to Canada, but it's still functioned just fine. All right, pretty good. Oh, something I forgot to mention: shoes. I used the Ultra Lone Peaks. They were great. I didn't have any problems with them, other than the fact that they didn't dry quickly enough for my liking. Other than that, they were super fantastic. Good grip, pretty durable. Yeah, I did 800 miles in one pair in the desert up to Kearsarge. So good shoes, very good shoes. And I've got my new pair right here that I'll be using, the 2.0s this year. I think one thing I forgot is that this will be get a trash compactor bag. That's right here. And line your backpack with it. So just put that in the backpack and then stuff everything in the bag as though you're just backing your backpack. Then you should have a little bit extra room at top. Cinch it up, twist up the top, bend it over, and then cinch your backpack. This will make sure that everything stays dry, and those pack covers that you see, don't bother. Completely useless. They soak through, and water, if it is raining, water gets in through the backside anyway. So just do this. Super light, and this way you're always prepared. If a freak rainstorm happens, guess what? You don't have to get anything out other than maybe your rain jacket and stuff. Everything in your backpack is protected because it's always going to be in that. All right, I think I got everything. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Like I said, this is the stuff that I finished the thru hike with. I'll do another video of This is not necessarily the things that I'm going to hike again with. These are just the things that worked on this trip. So I'll do another video of what I'm going to bring this coming trip, and that'll the differences will kind of show you what I learned from the trip, where I found that I could cut weight. But yeah, so just showing you all the stuff that did in fact work. All right, I think that's it. I think I got everything, and all right, hopefully this was helpful to you guys. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.